Welcome, everyone. I'm Joanna Pilatowicz, and my guest today has amazing story to tell you, actually stories from a lawyer into owner of a mystic journey bookstore with extraordinary experiences. So please welcome very warmly Jeffrey Segal. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm honored.
Thank you so much for agreeing to this because you are very busy. We all are very, very busy. Time is speeding up. However, I found out about you 2018 before all that craziness happened in the world.
Yes.
I knew just a little bit and I was so happy because my first author meeting was in your bookstore that has extraordinary history of great names like Greg Braden was
Yes.
doing some meetings there and other great people, and I met great people in your bookstores. So this is how I found out about you for the first time, and I always wanted to meet you. However, it did not happen this time. So now we have this wonderful chance. So tell us how it all started with you. I know just a little bit. Maybe from we start from the beginning, from your
Yeah.
childhood, first extraordinary experience you had.
Yeah. So, well, let me begin, I guess, back. I grew up in Los Angeles, which is where my bookstore and my crystal store is today. And, really my passion or my spiritual path began in what we call junior high school, which is around the age of 13. And when I was 13, I mean, I was just a kid, a young teenager. I met somebody who was in my life for 1 year, just 1 year, but this was the most extraordinary year for me because this friend, he came to me, he's like, "Look, you have to share this thing with me." I'm like, "What thing?" He's like, "It's called a Ouija board." And I was like, "Well, what does it do?" He's like, "Look, you come over and sit down and we'll do it." And so I went over, and for those who are listening or watching who haven't used a Ouija board, you sit on the floor and it's like, I don't know, it's a board that's probably 18 inches by 12 inches or a little bit bigger. And you sit and you with your legs crossed and you put it on put on the board on each other's laps. And then there's a little thing that's sort of like this, and it has a little poker, a little needle, and the board has words and letters. And really what it is a way to communicate supposedly with spirits. So look, a lot of people think this is what we call foo-foo, it's not real or whatever, or people push it around. But I started using it with this friend, and this Ouija board went crazy. I mean, it was moving around it was spelling out sentences like zoom, 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 zoom. We had to tell it to slow down. It would tell us jokes, and it would tell us about life and death and what happens after you die, and I mean all this amazing stuff. And I was 13 years old, and then my friend moved, and that was it. I didn't have any. I couldn't. And still to this day, I've never been able to recreate that experience, and we can talk about it a little bit more. But then, so I went through that, and that sort of just, without even knowing it, opened me up to a whole different way of thinking about life and death and the physical realm and other realms. And so I grew up in LA and Los Angeles, and I went to college here, and then I went to law school in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. And then I came back to Los Angeles and practiced law for 25 years. For 25 years. But after about 10 years, I really began to not like it. But I didn't have the courage, or what we call golden handcuffs, because of the money from being a lawyer. I didn't have the courage to break that security of the money and leave. But I kept thinking I want to get out, and eventually I what I call is I gave myself cancer in order to get out. It finally pushed me out, and we'll talk about that more. And then I went through what I call a natural healing process, not doing chemo. And I'll tell you the story about with my doctor and the deal I set up with him, and ultimately the cancer or whatever the abnormality was disappeared. And during that whole process, it was like I needed to change my life. And so I went from being a lawyer to opening Mystic Journey Bookstore. And I've been doing that for 15 years now.
I have some questions in between. I would
Okay.
love to go back to the Ouija board because for a lot of people, it has very bad connotations. You know, and all of horror movies were about that board particular that is like, you know, possession. And you had some extraordinary experience and pretty positive. As far as I read from your little description about you, like a little biography there, you had positive experience, something that most of the people would call it possession. You had the positive experience, and I would like to find out if you remember, if you could tell us more. Weren't you scared of it? What kind of spirit that was? How did you feel when you were doing it?
Well, so it actually, I don't, I don't really say this all too often, but I mean, it got very deep and I'll get into that. But, I just sat down with my friend and it just started doing its thing. I mean, we would have a single finger on it and it was zipping around. And like I said, it would tell us jokes and it was all positive. And, we could ask it anything and it would tell us things. I was never scared. Because I was just sort of sitting there and I was becoming more and more interested in it. And ultimately, over the course of a number of months, I was like, well, I'd like to do more, get more connected with you. It told us its name. I still remember its name was Tom. And
Was it a
so,
ghost? Sorry, was it a ghost?
no, it wasn't a ghost. I mean, so it was, well, I mean, it was a spirit, but so I was like, I want to get, can we do something so I can actually see you or something like that? And so it said, if you really want to do this, okay. And so it told us to set up this whole, I don't know what the right word is, procedure, or you could call, I don't like the word seance. It's the wrong word, but a whole procedure
Instruction.
where.
Will you tell us what it was?
Yeah, no, I mean, we went into, I mean, so look again, so I'm a little bit older now. This is like 50 years ago. Um, but we went into the room and it told my friend, my friend was sort of the facilitator. He set the room up just how this spirit directed him to do. And I remember, I think he lit some candles and he said some words, and basically I was just laying on the ground. And what I remember from that is going, in my mind to meet this spirit. And we met in a park and it presented itself in sort of an overcoat, a long jacket and a hat. And we had, we had conversations. It was around what we call a swing set, around the swing set that kids swing on. And I did that. I believe I did it twice with that. Never had, it was always a good experience. I don't remember any of the details. And then after that, we actually, because my friend was, he didn't do it. And so we asked, well, is there a way to see you talking to Tom, without me going, going into this state of other consciousness or whatever. And he was like, okay. And so we set up this other thing and it ended up presenting itself as a shadow on the wall. And so we had that experience. I mean, that you might call a ghost. I don't know. But the whole experience was only positive.
That's amazing, because sometimes, when I'm hearing you, I'm getting a feeling that maybe it was another version of you with the messages for you, because it was pretty deep.
I mean, it's possible. I don't, I don't profess to really know what happened there. I mean, it was part of my spiritual development, no doubt, because it opened me to the concept. Because look, there's when it would talk about life and death and different things that would go on. I mean, I was a kid. I had I certainly had a concept of life and death, but not what it would be like after one, left this incarnation or anything like that. And I mean, so I'm from an astrological standpoint, I'm a triple Capricorn. Okay.
Wow.
So I'm definitely not your stand-up comedian kind of guy, right? I don't go out and tell jokes, but this thing was telling jokes to us. And so that's not me or my friend at the time. So I don't have a sense that it was another part of me, but it maybe at some level, maybe from things in the past, but I think it was, and it was my friend who brought me to it. I didn't find it. It was brought to me. But it certainly was, like I said, the first step in my opening up to other to things beyond the material plane, the physical plane.
That is amazing. I still wish to find out in some sort of a way who was that spirit. Of course, I can just, ask questions and you probably won't remember by now. But it's pretty extraordinary, considering what we know about timelines, about part of our souls coming with messages for us, right? But the most important is, as you said, it gave you a great input into what spirituality is.
Yeah, I have to say, I have, and this is important for me, I have no regrets in my life. Okay. And that's part of how I live, to have no regrets. But one thing, if I had, how can I put this? So at some point during this whole period of time that I spent with my friend and the Ouija board, we started to ask it if we could transcribe what it was saying. And we actually took a recording of what it was saying, and we actually typed it out. And I don't know whatever happened to that typed out thing. My friend may have taken it with the Ouija board. I have no idea, but that was something I certainly wish I had now.
Oh God, is there any way to find out your friend? Hello, friend. If you hear this, call Jeff.
Yeah, there many years ago, I attempted to track down this friend and I couldn't find him. But you never know. I could try again. I still know his name. I don't know where he's living or if he's passed on, but you never know, right?
Right, exactly. Maybe it's a time now. Maybe right now. What's his name?
His name was Rick, and the last name was Kratz, Kratz.
Okay, Rick, if you're hearing us, please call Jeff. He's in Los Angeles right now.
Yeah.
It would
Yeah.
be very easy to find you because we are going to actually give the link under this video to your bookstore so everybody can visit if you are nearby or call, or I hope to visit soon, maybe, we'll
Yes.
see. To
Hopefully.
come back there. Yes, I loved it. It is such a magical place, absolutely.
Thank
But
you.
we will come back to that. And as soon as we can, we find out more about this Ouija board and your experience when Rick will call us or you. But you have this amazing story about alternative methods of supporting your health. And can you tell us more about it? Because, I have my channel for some time now, maybe it's a third year when I'm active here. And many people are going back and forth. They are desperate when something like that sounds really like a final destination of a life for a person, cancer. It sounds very bad. However, you did something extraordinary. Maybe you can tell us more about it. How did it happen that you found a way?
So let me say, so I do life coaching now too, and one of the things that I, really emphasize with my clients is to take certain steps in life so you don't end up with the cancer, because I really do believe that everything that happens in our lives we bring on. That's why I know I gave myself the cancer and took full responsibility for that, which was part of the healing process. But I encourage people to not do what I did, and to live in fear of getting out of what troubles them, what brings them anxiety, what brings them stress. If these things are impacting one's life every day, then the chance of, look, cancer is a disease, and disease is, many spiritual people say, is dis-ease, right? And you want to get out of that place of lack of ease. And so I really encourage people to take preventative measures so you don't end up having to deal with the cancer. But once the cancer came on, as I had said when we first started, I had been, literally hating my job for a decade. Okay. And I remember one day lying on my floor, looking up at the ceiling and saying, if I don't get out of law soon, I'm going to get sick. And within a year, I was sick. So this goes to, I had spiritual training that was I was blessed to be given in the early 80s. This sort of goes with another spiritual belief of mine, that a lot of the things that present to us as the most difficult challenges can present the greatest opportunities for growth. And so when I had finished law school in the States, we have to take what's called a bar exam in order to actually be a lawyer. You have to pass this exam. And when I was in law school, I went to a psychic, and with my girlfriend's psychic. And at the end, I was like, I'm more interested in metaphysical stuff, probably left over from my Ouija board experience. And she's like, well, here, call the people on this card. And I never called them. Well, when I took the bar exam, I failed. And then I took the card and I called that organization, that it's an order, spiritual order. And that organization, for more than 20 years, I received lessons on creating every week in the mail that I practiced, all the time. It became my core being and my core spiritual beliefs about how we create everything in our lives. And so to go back to the cancer, once I had the cancer, so what happened was I had testicular cancer. And so I had surgery and they're like, you're good to go. We got it early. Bye. We'll just do some tests. Well, then, and I went back to the law firm after that, which is a really important part of the story, because I didn't get out. Even with the cancer, I didn't get out. I still hadn't woken up. So I went back to law, and then I took my first follow-up test, and like, oh my God, it's in your lymph nodes. It's spreading. You need chemo. And as soon as I heard that, all I can say is I intuitively knew that's not for me. That is not what I want to do. And so my best friend from back in, college or university, he was my regular doctor. He's a doctor, what we call an internist. And he was like, no, you have to do the chemo. You could die. And I'm like, no, I know. I don't want to do this. This isn't the right path for me. And he was like, let's make a deal. I'm like, okay, what's your deal? He's like, you do your silly spiritual foo-foo stuff with all your natural healers for 90 days, and then we test again. And if it's the same or worse, you have chemo. But if it's better, we'll see. And so I did that, and I said, deal, I'm going to do it. So I put together a team of healers. I had an acupuncturist. I had a body worker. I had an energy worker who did pranic healing and crystal healing. I had a regular, we here call a regular therapist. And then I had a very strong support system around me with my girlfriend at the time. And I left, I took a sabbatical from my job. I got out and I work with these healers, on a regular basis. I took walks on the beach all the time. And I went through this for the 90 days my friend gave me, and I tested again. And lo and behold, my abnormalities had shrunk 50%, just gone away. And so I said to my friend, so do I get another 90 days? And he's like, deal. And in the next 90 days, I kept doing it. The abnormality had disappeared completely. My lymph nodes were clear. And, and after that is when I decided that's it. I got a kick in the fanny and I'm getting out of law. And then I went down the path of the bookstore, and the cancer has never come back. And look, and I was doing all of my all of the training that I had received from the spiritual order in terms of, you know, manifesting what I want in my life. I mean, part of this lesson was that not only can I manifest externally in the external world, I can manifest it inside in my internal world. And that certainly was a, you know, a huge part of the whole healing process.
Mm-hmm. I have a question here because probably you're working also with people who have similar experiences. And I heard some of them also, because there's a very typical thing. They have difficult, usually people have difficult situation they cannot get out of. And if you tell them, just leave the situation that brings you this uneasy feeling for a longer period of time, because that is very similar with every case. They are in the situation that gives them a negative feeling, discomfort, and they just keep on ignoring or bear it or leave it with it for a longer period of time. So if they don't, for example, tell me, I don't have money to leave that situation, I cannot do that, what you are suggesting those people?
So I think a lot of times when people are stuck in a situation that they want to get out of, they, in their mind, they think of all of the reasons that they can't get out. And so what I coach people to do, or my clients to do, is to break things down and take things one at a time, step by step. Find the first thing, the first, what we call the first rung in the ladder, the first step in the staircase that you can address to begin to move out of the situation. I mean, look, it may be, you know, there's all these things that could be. I mean, but maybe the absolute first step is to, let's say it's to go ahead and find another evening job or something you can do from home to create some additional income so that you can begin to have some cushion. You know, when I left the law, it was not boom, bye-bye. I went part-time for a while. Okay, so I transitioned through it. And look, like in opening a business, I work with people in opening a business. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that need to be done to get the business. But let's say like the first thing is you have to do a business plan, or you have to find a location, or you have to find funding. I mean, if you took all of these things like, oh my God, it's too much, it becomes too much. So I break it down. That's what I suggest.
That's amazing tip. There is another type of people with the cancer who's saying that they worked things out. They have no idea why it happened to them. What would you say to them?
Well, no, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, and
Yeah,
I'm sure to be honest, I think the majority of people say that to themselves. Why did I get this? Why me?
yeah, yes,
And, you know, my answer to that is, I mean, we can, you know, and particularly with help. I mean, look, as I said, I mean, one of my healers was just what I would call a regular therapist. I mean, I think there are, you know, at that time, there may be things that happened long ago or that we buried, some emotional thing that happened that's sort of been inside that needs to be dug up and released. I mean, my energy worker was also very big on emotional issues causing various things down the line. And the other thing, I really feel that I need to say this. People come in a lot of times. So yeah, as we've been talking about, I own the bookstore, but I also own Mystic Journey Crystal Gallery, which is just all crystals and big crystals and geodes. And we get a lot of people coming in asking about, you know, do crystals have an effect? Can they work? Can they help to heal? And I always say to everybody, yes, they can, but it takes a very special combination of the individual, the crystal selected, and if the healer is involved, the healer. So, you know, if I pick a crystal and it may do something for me, but it wouldn't do it for you. Or I may have a healer who with the crystal does amazing work on me, but it wouldn't work on you. So it's not, this is like no guarantee. And I would never tell everybody, oh, don't do chemo. It's it had, like I said, that was intuitively, I knew at the moment it was said to me, this is not for me. And so it was in part about following my intuition. But I think that your question was, what if people say, why me? I think they need to dig, but then at some point what happens with that is there's a focus on the past. Okay, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I think that the focus, in tandem with digging out some potential emotional issues, is to focus on the future. What is the, like I said, what is the opportunity this is presenting to me? What can I do to move forward? What is the best thing? And those are the two things that I think that need to be done together.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of people, I also I'm very much into this topic because during the years, many of my friends, people I knew, died of cancer, right? Very often right after chemotherapy.
Yes.
So that is something, of course, that I noticed. And with some of the people I worked psychologically, and there is also something like the aspect, like how much can you really assist? Like it's so individual path. And we together are discovering now more what we didn't know maybe 20 years ago. Maybe we had only one way of going about it. And now we have so many different therapies that because I'm listening to you carefully, you are connecting a lot of different therapies. You had a therapy, psychologically, acupuncture. So working with the blockages with the body, so the energy flows, releasing something emotionally. So there is always something to dig in deeply. And I hope this will be a great message to everyone to pick the best path for themselves when they are doing something, and not just the one thing and saying that, oh, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And as you were talking, it crossed my mind to say, look, I think we talk to ourselves all the time. And sometimes we talk out loud, and sometimes it's just in our brain. We're talking to ourselves. But I think, I remember, because I live at the beach. I live on the, at the ocean side, and I would take long walks. And part of what my energy worker, my pranic healer would tell me is, to walk and say affirmations. I am healthy. And it sounds, I want to say it sounds almost silly, but it's not. I mean, it's really, because when you say I am, I mean, it's bringing it into the present. The whole idea in what training I've been given, and that I share, is that you want to be, when you're working on creating what you want in your life, what you want to be feeling as though it's already happened. You're living in what you want. And so when you say, I am healthy, or I am cancer free, whatever those words are, you're actually feeling and seeing yourself in that state already. And
Yes.
That's what brings it on, or helps to bring it on.
Yeah, it sounds like affirmation is just a generic, banal thing to repeat, and it's hard to feel it when you don't feel it. But, I made a lot of experiments as well. When you're talking about it, one time I was working with kids in the school here in Germany, and I actually wanted to do something else. I wanted to do something with my art, the paintings behind me, and say, okay, maybe, I'm visible as an artist. And I didn't believe it at all. I just was blindly keep on repeating on the way to work, only that thing, like I'm visible as an artist.
Right.
And the first sign was the kids approached me and they ask you, oh, Frau Joanna, because it's Frau in German, are you famous? And I was like, what's going on? And they were asking me like, like Michael Jackson. And I was like, no, but I was so much having fun and like thinking, sometimes it doesn't really matter that you don't feel it first.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing how actually it works when we learn all the components of manifesting, or maybe co-creating reality when we want something. But you continued creating great thing in your life. So if not low, how you come up with the concept like mystic journey?
So, and well, I'll answer that, but I have to go back to, there was a period of time where I painted also, and I actually, I ended up having a show at a very well-known gallery and sold a bunch of paintings, and
Wow.
yeah, I mean, but it was again, just letting go and doing it and believing that it can happen, and things like that can happen. But so with the bookstore, when I was going through my healing, and I was on my sabbatical, I was like, okay, I mean, and this question people must ask, over a million times.
Mm-hmm.
If I could do anything, what would I do? Or what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Right. And ultimately, I mean, and so I believe the most important there's a single question that's the most important question in all of life. And that question is, what do I really want?
Yeah.
And it's not a multiple answer question. It's a single answer, but it's not always, in fact, it's not always easy. And many times it's difficult. And so for me, I wanted to get out of law, but I didn't know what I really wanted to do. Right. And that was part of my block in getting out, was I didn't know what I really wanted. Well, during my healing, I mean, I had plenty of time to really think about that. And ultimately, it came down to, what am I passionate about? Where does my passion lie? And it then came down to two choices. So as I've said, the spiritual teachings I had been given became the core of my being, and my spiritual practice was really my passion, one of my passions at the time. And my other passion was to travel. And so I ended up choosing between opening the bookstore and being a travel agent.
Wow. How did
And
you pick between those?
and in the end, I look, there's some practical stuff. I mean, I realized being a travel agent, it's hard to transition from being a lawyer to being a travel agent.
Someone like that, but next
Yeah,
time.
I will have to talk. But the other thing was, in Los Angeles, which is a very large city, right? There was a spiritual bookstore in another part of town, but in my part of the city near the beach, there was no spiritual bookstore. There was no spiritual hub anywhere. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to bring this type of business to my part of town. And between that and realizing that doing the travel agent thing could be difficult, I decided to open the bookstore. And I did it actually, and I did it in 2008, which here was the moment of the crash, right? And people were like, and it was also the time that they were coming out with electronic readers, like from like Nook and Kindle were just starting then. And people were like, you're crazy opening a bookstore right now. And I was like, no, this is it. It'll work. And we're almost 15 years later.
Wow. Big congratulations on that one. Yeah. Especially, yes, because it is logic that everybody's reading on Kindle now, and who needs print books. Frankly, I always, as a kid, like to, buy a new book and smell it, That was
Yeah.
such a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, to have it home. And to this very moment, I cannot read so good on Kindle. I have one, but I still prefer to have, book like real and, in my
Yeah.
hands. Yeah, so I think it's a great thing. But you don't have only bookstore, you connecting people there. I met a interesting psychic in your bookstore, people gathering not only just to buy. There was a couch there, people can sit and talk. There was a lot of lectures, workshops you were offering there. So a lot of things are going on there. Tell us more.
Yeah, so when I opened the bookstore, it was really the concept. There were, like I said, there was actually two spiritual stores in all of Los Angeles. None were near me, and the idea for me was to open a spiritual hub, a place where people could gather, a place where we provided all sorts of different types of tools for people's different spiritual needs. So whether it's tarot cards or candles or sage or workshops, and we have, we call them intuitive readers. And these are people, I mean, look, they're also called psychics, but we have like numerologists, astrologers, also people who use nothing but intuitive abilities, people who we have people who who can connect with people who've crossed over. So all sorts of different types of, we call them readers. And they're really a huge part of our family. But my whole concept, like I said, was to create this community hub for spirituality.
You moved after a while. You moved to another location right now. So where are you now?
So we moved about 1 mile from where we were. So, I mean, Los Angeles is a bit of a strange place. There's actually cities within the city of Los Angeles. So now I'm about a mile away in a city called Santa Monica, a little closer to the beach, but still, a big city. And pretty much, I mean, a lot of people have heard of Venice, called the Venice because of the Venice Boardwalk, which is pretty famous. I mean, we're still next door to Venice. And we've been there, and this was interesting too. I had made the decision to move before COVID came, but it turned out that the time of the move was in the middle of COVID. So for the second time in the bookstore's life, it was opening a location in the middle of something really difficult. And what I found was, it was sort of at a time, we opened in August of 2020. And what I found, it was a time when a lot of people were closing and people weren't really out much. But we were allowed, at that time, I opened the day that Los Angeles allowed people to come into bookstores on a limited, to retail stores on a limited basis and with masks. And what I found was that people were so excited to see a new place, to see this beacon of light, that we immediately became like a grounding spot in our neighborhood, right? Again, a place to attract people, and people were just thrilled that we were there.
I have one more question for you. So what is it? Because I know I pay attention to the time here. So
it's okay. We're good. I got 20 minutes.
You have still time. That's fantastic. But maybe we can do part 2 in case there will be more, and there will be always more. How did you manifest what you really want? How do you find out that this is what you really want? What was the feeling that, okay, I'm going for that one, nothing else. This is what I'm passionate about. That's one of the questions. So this moment, aha, this is it. What did you feel? Because it's a lot, for people to find out. People don't know what they really want. And some of us, we think we know. And then we find out it was a program of our maybe parents, ancestors, or pressure from the society, right? So what was this moment of aha? And what is your, I don't like to call it like a life mission, because that also sometimes gives a pressure, but something like, what do you think? Why are you here on this planet?
Well, so I'll take that last question first. And the answer to that is, it's easy for me. It's to be of service to others. That is, what I found law very unfulfilling. And in opening the bookstore, and in opening the spiritual hub, and in opening the crystal gallery, it is about being of service to others, to people. I mean, look, we get people who come in who are just walking down the street, and they're like, wow, this is a cool place. But we get lots of people who come in who are looking for some help in some way, whether, some guidance, some tool, something to read, some crystal to help them, something. And so I want to be of service, and in continuing my life, my goal is to be of ever greater service. That's why I started doing life coaching. I recently wrote my book, the Tiny Book of Big Manifesting. That's also to be of more service, to continue to present to others. I'm now, hosting my own podcast called the Mystic Journey Podcast, where I have people come and tell about their mystic journey to inspire others. So it's really about being of service to others. In relation to the aha moment, there's something that this goes with the spiritual teachings I've been given. I think there's a way to actually, I don't know, this is the first time I've ever used this word in relation to this, but there's a way to test it, I think. So I believe, and I've used a lot of visualization practice in my manifestation work. I think it's actually the core of it. And part of, as I talked about before, and saying the affirmations about being, when you're saying them, it's like they've already happened. Well, in visualizing for manifesting, when you visualize, you want to be visualizing something that's as though it's already happened. You don't want to see it right in the future. Mm-hmm. So what I believe and what I coach is that if one sits down and starts to do these visualization practices for creating what they want, and it is difficult to visualize what you want, that's something to stop and really take a look at. The visualization should be relatively easy. I mean, at the beginning, it may not be full of details. It may be sort of vague, and the idea is as you work with it to fill in the painting, to fill in the picture. But if you're doing it, and let's just say, I'm just making this up, right? Let's say I want a Ferrari, right? And you're like visualizing, and you really can't see yourself in a Ferrari. There's a problem. There's a problem there. And so I think that's a way to at least check in to see if you're heading in the right path. It's like there's a teaching. There's books by Esther Hicks, who I think is a wonderful author, and she talks a lot about not swimming upstream and being in the flow. It's the same concept. If you're having trouble visualizing what you think you want, you're starting to swim upstream, and then it's time to again check in and take a look.
Yeah, that's a good test. I think that will be helpful to a lot of people right now, because a lot of people still struggle. Another big one, but maybe I will ask what kind of challenges people are coming right now to you, past maybe months or years, because probably it's changing.
Yeah, it's funny. I would actually answer that. I mean, it's really varied. I mean, but everybody's coming. So look, we have all these intuitive readers at the store. So if people want to come in and talk to an intuitive reader about something that this intuitive reader can see happening them in the future, I mean, that's seeing in the future is not what I do. I'm a practical coach. I mean, I'm a triple Capricorn, so I'm all about practicality and really
Welcome. I'm a Capricorn too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. Taking the concrete steps to do that. And so most people who actually book with me, they're looking for guidance on, it's almost what you said about how to take the next step in their life. They want to make a change. They're not looking for like, does this guy love me or something like that? That's not, this is different. They want to make some change in their life, and they're coming to me to help them begin to walk down that new path.
So it's like making the major change, like from changing profession, something that they never done this before ever. They don't know where to start. And
yeah, and I mean, I had a woman who, she was retired, right? And she retired. I mean, she wasn't old, but she retired, and now she was like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm sort of bored. And so and then and she actually, it's like, and I had another woman who came in and said, I'm retired, and I'm doing all these things, and now I'm too busy and I don't know what to focus on. So there are all these different these things, but it's about, you know, like making a change or focusing their life into something. And I think a lot of people, I mean, look, I still think a lot of people, the word happiness, I want to be happy. I think that's a very difficult, what's the thing? A difficult thing to find, because I mean, what is happiness, right? I mean, it's a different definition for most, but I think it relates to being fulfilled, right? And being fulfilled and content in life. And I think a lot of people are really searching for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that, but this is something I noticed by working with people, that there is this pressure of time, pressure of the society imposing things to do. So people feeling overwhelmed very often by amount of things, obligations maybe to do, to be, to become. Taking up another course they don't need, paying for something they don't really need, right? And the biggest problem is to focus on one thing, right? How do you
Absolutely.
coach people to go and find out how to get rid of, maybe not get rid of, but use it in a constructive way, that pressure? Because it is complex topic. It takes with us, it goes with assertiveness, with knowing what you want, right? It all those components. But basically, if someone like that comes to you, and there are many people, they don't know what's true right now. You know, the media are saying completely opposite things, convincingly finding so-called facts on this side of the story, and people are overwhelmed, and then they have to work to just to make it. You know, when I was in Los Angeles, sorry, I'm talking so long, but
No, that's
when I
okay.
was there, I met people who had to pick up 3 jobs in order to maintain their families. And they wanted to be also filmmakers, because everybody in LA is
Yeah.
filmmaker. But I met wonderful people, and they were really passionate. But those obligations, that pressure, didn't allow them to be who they really are or who they really wanted to be. So this, you know, the money situation, I think, was the biggest I watched in LA. Uh, so how do you assist them? How do you lead them out of that trap?
Yeah, well, right. It's expensive it's so expensive to live here. And you know, look, a lot of people are working what we would call minimum wage jobs, or, you know, something that, I mean, they're not all lawyers and doctors, right? Um,
Yeah.
and and so it's very challenging. And you know, there's a lot of time prioritization, right? And so look, I mean, there are people who are working multiple jobs and can't find any time.
Yeah.
But even with that, I mean, the thing is to create some gap, some space of time where one can really focus on what they're passionate about, and work on creating something that can lead them into a new path. And it's interesting as I say that, you know, look,
Mhm.
I'm a little bit older, and so all of the, you know, they call them content creators. I mean, all of these ways now of creating have changed so much in the last 5 to 10 years. There are all these opportunities to create so many different things in so many different ways. And it's about, I mean, it's about somehow creating this box of time that it's almost like, I would call it a ritual, right?
Mhm.
It's a ritual that the individual takes this period of time to pursue their passion, so that it can start to open and blossom, and hopefully lead them to somewhere they prefer to be.
Fantastic. I have more questions, but maybe we can do part 2. What do you think, everyone out there? If you have any questions, please write it down under this video, and maybe Jeff will have a great chance to read it, and maybe next time we talk some more. Because you have also, you met great people that inspired you and you inspired them. And I'm sure that you have many, many great stories to tell us that we can benefit from. And yeah, we can continue our mystic journey.
Yes, I would be happy to come back and do another hour with you. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Me too. I would say the same. And of course, that's so funny. You are triple Capricorn. You gotta tell me more about it, because we have so many more topics. I'm sure Jeff knows about numerology, astrology, because all these people every day are coming to his bookstore, and he's probably there. But I next time I'll hope to see you there, to meet you there. Jeff, thank you so much for today.
It's been my pleasure. And let me just say to everybody, I mean, we're online. You can find us at mysticjourneyla.com, and we're on all sorts of social media at Mystic Journey LA as well. So
And
thank you.
all the links below this video, and also to your gallery. Please, you send me the link. Thank you so much. And till the next time. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Jeff.